Gengar Gang. What is going on? My name is Ryan, this is the Analytic Gengar, and welcome to another video. In today's video, friends, we talk about if it's about that time to sell your entire collection because prices are dropping and you should be panicking. And the short answer to that question, or statement, is no, you shouldn't. And no, don't panic. So, today's video is one that I have given myself a headache over, but was realistically just inspired by a variety of different posts as well as conversations that I saw happening in the comment sections of X, Y, and Z places, and it got me thinking. And of course, as many of these prompts sort of get me, I decided to go through the mental gymnastics, record it, and then hopefully deliver some valuable content to you, my viewers, and to the YouTube community as a whole in an attempt to justify why you shouldn't be panicking right now. Obviously, prices are dropping. I've done a couple different videos on the topic, but one of the most recent ones basically says, yes, prices are dropping. It's probably due to a combination of fatigue, the vaccine kind of helping people to get back out there, and just shifting focus in the hobby, because first edition base set couldn't always be the thing, and vintage couldn't always be the thing. As any market will historically show, there are times of growth and expansion, there are times of contraction and recession, and that's the cyclical nature of most economic patterns. So we have to live with that reality. It is what it is. Now, depending on when you purchased, in my liquidity video, which I released a few weeks ago, which I definitely recommend you go check out to get a better understanding of if you're not already up to date, I did advocate that if you purchased when things were high, your motivations may not necessarily be the best right now, because obviously you purchased when things were incredibly expensive, and so now prices are declining, and obviously you're out of the money. The opposite is true if you purchased literally any time before or after that when prices were significantly cheaper, because as a result of that, you now have some sort of built-in equity in your purchase. And then there are, of course, the considerations just of, the long term. Any seasoned collector will tell you that it really doesn't matter what the timing of your purchase is, because there will be times when you purchase at a high price, there will be times at a low price, there will be times when you break the ceiling and times when you set the floor. And that's okay, because if you're a consistent buyer and seller, or if you're just consistently collecting, in theory, the law of averages dictates that, you're not always going to time it perfectly one way or the other, but in the long run, you're going to come out on top, because in the long run, everything is going to appreciate anyway. So those are some of the basic fundamentals that this video is based on. Again, I strongly recommend you go check out the liquidity video, as well as the recent sort of price recap from PWCC's auctions, just so you get some better coverage and understanding. But hopefully for anyone who's jumping in with this video first, the previous couple of minutes have given you a solid overview of what to do. So with all that said, I'll now go ahead and just kind of address the main question in the room, which is, Ryan, I bought a whole bunch of stuff and prices are declining. What do I do now? Well, there's one of two buckets that you probably fall into if you're asking that question. One is significantly easier to deal with than the other. So the first bucket is that you're in need of money. Referencing the liquidity video again, it's probably indicative of the fact that you did a little too much spending, you thought prices were going to continue to go up and you could flip, or that, you could at least get your value back. And unfortunately, perhaps the specific items you've purchased are not quite where they were 2 months ago, 6 months ago, 8 months ago. And as a result of that, you're in a situation where, you have some upcoming needs, or you have some upcoming capital demands, and, your money's tied up in Pokemon right now. It's not a fun time, and you're straight up not having a good time, bro. Well, got a couple things to say to you for that. One, I told you so. Go watch the damn liquidity video. Sorry, I had to work that one in there. Did I mention you should go watch the liquidity video? You should. Go watch it. Not now, but after the video. Anyways, I told you so, but obviously there is a strategic way out. And I think that's one of the things that I will at least attempt to communicate in this video, is how do you kind of go navigating that. So, of course, as with many of these types of scenarios, it's probably best to show you an example. So here is an actual example, right? Let's just pretend that you made 2 purchases of $30,000 each. And of course, this can be applied to your real life scenario as well. It doesn't need to be $30,000. It could be $300,000. It could be $30. The same rules and principles apply when you're looking at and considering this stuff. So you have 2 different items. They both cost $30,000 US, right? That's your basis in the item. The next thing to consider is that, of course, there are current market prices, right? So you have these 2 different items, and item 1 now has a price of about $20,000. Item 2 now has a price of about $27,000. So across the board, you're still a big loser. You're down about $13,000, and that's spread out across item 1 and item 2, which are disproportionate in the way that they have lost, right? So it's not $6,500 each. Instead, item 1 seems to be going down at a far stronger rate than item 2 is. This isn't uncommon for many situations that I have seen. What we've noticed in the recent sort of downturn and releveling of the Pokemon hobby is that there is a type of K-shaped economy going on right now. Some items are continuing to go upwards, like the first part of the K, and then some items are going down, like the bottom half of the K. And then even within the bottom half, some items are going down at worse rates than other items are. And so it's not uncommon for situations to play out like this on screen right now. Either way, you're down about $13,000, which means if you were to pull out right now, you had invested $60,000. You're now at about $47,000. Not necessarily the nicest number, given that you've lost close to or about 25-ish% of your money. So that certainly stings. But the one thing that I will say to you is that if you have an absolute demand for money, I'm talking about you need, $25,000 right now, and you're also scared. You're also panicked because, prices are going down, and it appears as though this pattern may continue for some period of time. Just hear me out. Right now, the best thing you can do is breathe, take a big deep breath, look at the 2 items, do a very simple analysis like this, and see which one will net you the most money in the short run. So in this particular case, the very simple answer to that question is item number 2. It's only gone down about $3,000, which means for one reason or the other, it hasn't suffered the same recessionary decrease in value that item 1 has. And so, although this might seem counterintuitive, you might want to just sell item 2, even though it's worth more, but it also means you're going to put more in your pocket. And again, the main prompt to this situation was you need capital for one reason or the other. Well, my advice to you is to sell the item that is going to give you the most money right now. Here's the thing that I usually advocate. For a situation like item number 1, you bought it at $30,000, which means at some point there was a market where this thing sold for $30,000. And assuming you are an informed buyer who made a educated decision and didn't just buy something for fun or for the hype of it all, there's a pretty strong possibility that this is a retracing situation. So the price may have declined, and I will admit it has declined quite aggressively. It's lost about 33% of its value from when you bought it. But my argument is that if someone was willing to pay that in the past, it is likely that someone will be willing to pay that in the future. The future may be defined as 5 weeks from now, the future may be defined as 5 years from now. But if you're looking for a limited amount of capital in the short run, you might want to identify the item that's going to get you there right off the bat, and then go ahead and sell that item, right? So let's just pretend that you needed $25,000 because of an unforeseen repair at the house, or you wanted to buy a new car, or congratulations, you're getting married and you want to get through it while social distancing is still a thing, so you don't have to invite your annoying cousins. Well, fine. You could sell item number 1, put $20,000 in your pocket, and then realize you're short $5,000 because you needed $25,000. And then you'll be forced to sell item 2, but then you'll induce a full $13,000 loss. My argument, again, strategically thinking here, is sell item number 2 get $27,000, you only induce a $3,000 loss, and you can still keep item 1 in its totality and wait for it to appreciate in value, at least to the point so that you can recover your initial investment. So you see how the decision has to be made here. It's very tempting to sell the $20,000 card because it's scary having lost $10,000 already. But sometimes what you need to realize is that as quickly as prices go up, prices can go down. And again, if there's precedent in the market for an item like this to sell for $30,000, there's a chance that in the future it'll sell for even more. So it's really just a matter of timing, and depending on what your capital and liquidity needs are, you may then just need to prioritize certain items and work to fulfill those requirements as quickly and efficiently as possible. Don't sell both of these items and induce a far larger loss. Sell the ones that have declined the least. Get your capital requirements out of the way, whether it be, making rent or buying that new car or whatever have you, and hold the other item and live to fight another day. Now, the other one thing that I'd like to urge folks to consider when you're making decisions like this, in terms of like, hey Ryan, I need money right now and my collection's losing value all the way around. Well, the second thing I'll have to say is you should also start layering in considerations about what's going to grow the most in the future. So this kind of connects with the point that I made at the very end of my previous statement, which was, think about which cards are going to retrace the opposite way. They're $20,000 right now, but one day they'll probably hit $30,000 again. Who knows? They may even go above that. Now, in a situation like that, as you can see on screen, there are merits to a potential $55,000 price tag for item number 1. That means potentially you're looking at about $25,000 in gain based on your initial investment of $30,000. And let's just hypothetically say item number 2 in the future at the same time was going to sell for $45,000, meaning you could bake about $15,000. Well, in a situation like this, we also start layering in opportunity costs, because now you also have to take into account the idea that selling one of these cards or both of these cards will come at a cost to you in the future, because again, you're selling these cards now to meet your requirements for money. And in the future, you're technically losing out on the ability to make this money. Is the ability to make this money the same as the potential gain? No, not really. You didn't lose $25,000 because you sold the card now instead of then. The only difference is that you're losing out on the ability to do so, and that is a genuine cost to you. In a situation like this, what I advocated actually makes the most sense, because if you look at it, you're going to sell your card for $27,000 right now. You lose $3,000, but you hold item number 1. And in the future, you're able to sell that $55,000 card that you paid $30,000 for and make a $25,000 in gain. And if you offset that with the $3,000 loss that you suffered from selling item 2, quote unquote, prematurely, you still come out a winner because you've made about $22,000 in the long run. If you flip the sort of structure around and you were to sell item 1 first, what you'll notice is you lose $10,000, you put $20,000 in your pocket. You're still short money, and since you can't sell a part of item 2, you have to sell the entire thing. So now you have $47,000 in your pocket, you've lost $13,000. Ironically enough, in the future, you're going to have lost the opportunity to make $40,000 because you would have had the 25 from item 1 and the 15 from item 2. That combines to $40,000, and then you have to add on to that the $13,000 that you actually did lose. So on top of everything else, not only have you missed out on the opportunity for $40,000, you also actually forced yourself to lose $13,000 as well. So as you can see, managing what and identifying where efficiencies lie with depreciating value of some of your Pokemon card assets is a huge critical component to the way that you manage your liquidity. Of course, the opposite situation could be true, right? So in the future, item 1 could sell for $35,000, item 2 could sell for $47,000. Again, item 2, has a potential for the future, but if you sell item 2 right now, you still only lose $3,000. Then later you sell item 1 for $35,000. You got your gain of $5,000. You offset it with your $3,000 loss. You made about $2,000 in the long run. If you sell item 1 and then item 2, you're in the books, because then you lose $13,000 and then you still lose out on the ability to make $22,000. So, couple things about what I just did there. Obviously, all of this ignores income taxes, which is its own sort of beast, because most of this stuff would fall under capital gains, and the recognition of gains and losses through that. Then you have to think about whether or not it was long or short term. So again, for the sake of simplicity, we're just going to go ahead and ignore this stuff. The other thing is that these are rather large numbers. So obviously you can knock off a few zeros if your investments aren't quite this big, but the same exact principles do apply. If you guys think about it and look at it, you'll see that, you know, as you're panicking and starting to freak out because you need some money or you need to do something, you want to look and see where these types of situations can play out, because obviously you don't want to end up a bigger loser than you already are in terms of finances. You'd like to minimize your loss and optimize your potential to make money in the future because of the appreciation that occurs to a Pokemon card collectible in the long run. And that's really what I hope that this mental exercise has gone ahead and shown you how to do. Now, at the very beginning of the video, I said that there's another scenario playing out. This, up till now, the entirety of the video has been dedicated to this idea that you made a bunch of investments and now you need some money for one reason or the other. You were hoping that things were going to appreciate. Obviously, things haven't appreciated. Both things depreciated. And so this exercise was mainly driven to show you how to go about making decisions that would optimize your losses as well as optimize your potential for profit in the future. Now we're talking about the opposite situation, which is, okay, Ryan, I bought a whole bunch of stuff, it declined. You got any advice for me? I'm just kind of sitting here, I don't necessarily know what to do. I've seen some YouTube video thumbnails that are very scary. I've seen some very pessimistic Redditors and Twitter commenters. And, you know, there's a general sentiment like, oh, the Pokemon card bubble is crashing. Oh no, what am I gonna do? Ooh. Well, let's talk about it. Here's the thing, as long as there's been vintage Pokemon card collectors or like big money spenders, there's always been people who have looked to every possible downturn in the Pokemon card market and said, oh no, what are we gonna do? You should sell your collection right now. In fact, I've had family members say that to me on multiple different occasions, thinking that this was going to be the next big apocalyptic event. The truth of the matter is, they've always been wrong, and they'll probably consistently be wrong for the future, which is why, for most folks, I very much advocate not having that attitude. That attitude being defined as the attitude that one day Pokemon's going to lose all of its value, and it's going to be worthless, and all the money you've spent investing in it is going to be for nothing. My argument with that is that we're currently not on any reasonable trajectory that sets us up for that happening in the future. And if we were, you guys know me, I'd probably try to be at least reminding you of the potential for it. But Pokemon is still one of the highest grossing media franchises of all time. Demand has never been higher for both vintage and modern product. And even if there is a slight decline in the overall demand and pricing for some of the more vintage stuff, again, some stuff continues to go through the roof. So I don't see a reasonable situation playing out where, you know, aliens aren't involved or we don't discover some life-altering secret about Pokemon and life as we know it. Like, aside from that, I just don't see a situation playing out where stuff gets reset. And of course, a huge inspiration on this channel has been our good friend Scott Pratt, and SM Pratt always says this, and I 100% agree with him. If everything went back down to MSRP, like vintage everything went down to $100 a booster box, you know what would happen? I'd bid 101, he'd bid 110, someone else would bid 150. Before you know it, we'd be right back where we are right now. Because the truth of the matter is, the big people in this hobby, they're not in it for the short run. So if prices dip tomorrow, they could care less. As I mentioned at the beginning of this video, they've been investing for so long now that the law of averages just truly applies in almost perfect optimized form, because they don't really care. they'll let the prices drop, but they plan on being here 3 years from now when prices are back up, and they plan on being here 25 years from now when Pokemon is celebrating its 50th anniversary. And so for them, they could care less what happens in the short term. So if you're in a similar situation where you're just kind of sitting here and you've made some investments that for a fact have declined in value, I would just say hang tight. This is the ideal situation to be in. Pokemon's been around for 25 years. It's likely that it will continue to be around for 25 years more, plus some. And I have a feeling that my great-grandkids and your great-great-grandkids will likely still enjoy Pokemon, whether it be as a hobby, as a video game, or as a television show. As a result of that, there's a long-term nostalgia factor that is continually driving this hobby and continually fueling people's love for the trading cards. So if you've made those investments and you saw them decline recently, the one thing I will say is that don't be afraid, because it happens to every economy ever, and much like any economy, there are periods of growth and expansion and then ones where we retract a little bit and go through a little recession. Whether this is a little bit of a reset, a reshuffle, some market frustration, or a full-on recession for Pokemon cards, I think all of the things are true in some capacity. This too shall pass, you know what I mean? Act like a long-term investor, because long-term investors care less about what happens. They will buy the dip. They will pump money into the hobby right now because they know that sooner or later this stuff is going to go back up in value. And it may not be today, it may not be tomorrow. Unfortunately, it may not even be for the next 3-4 years. The next time we see something big may be like the 30th anniversary, but that's okay, because you need to act and think like you plan on being around then. There'll come opportunities to make a quick buck, and you should take advantage of those if that's something that motivates you or something that you enjoy doing and can add value to the community while doing. But in the long run, you need to also just consider the fact that prices will dip and ebb and flow and bottom out and top out, and you just need to be prepared to sit it out and be patient. Patience is a thing that so many people lack, and it's that patience and that fear that typically cause people to make some very silly decisions. But with that said, friends, thanks again for checking out another video. I hope today's video lends some much needed sympathy and relief to those people who may be, kind of jittering in the corner about some investments that they made or some money that they spent. As many of you know, I and many other people have very large collections, and obviously they're technically bleeding money right now because the values are either plummeting or holding still, whereas over the past year and a half they've been pretty consistently growing month over month. Is that a bad thing? No, not really. It was passive income then, it's passive loss now. It's not reportable or measurable in any real way aside from eBay sales, and even then, again, act like you're in the long term. That's the best way. Trust me, it saves you from getting a lot of gray hairs, and in the grand scheme of things, it's just the better way to collect. But if you heard something in today's video that you thought was insightful, or if you learned anything new, feel free to leave a like on the video. As always, you could have been anywhere on the internet, but I appreciate the fact that you chose to spend some time with me, and that means the world. If you're not already, feel free to subscribe to the Gengar Gang. We are very rapidly approaching that 1,000 subscriber mark, so it would mean the world if you watch my videos and you enjoy my content, that you join us along for the ride. And as always, friends, I appreciate your time. I hope you learned something, and we will talk soon. Peace.